because hopefully, I mean, in not a long while, we obviously want to look where we go from here, and I would also like to include Lourdes. But I was just wondering if Renato, if there is any comment you would like to make to the discussion that is going on right now, or shall we just leave that?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Monica. Well, as Gregorio mentioned, yes, it is true. I mean, like the issuance of this financial protection strategy that the government launched a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, it's an important, really milestone for how Peru is managing disaster risk. It was included some exposure data, legal framework, and also it was developed a 5 strategy lines of action, which includes exactly the promote of development of a domestic catastrophic insurance market. In this sense, and it's very important for the insurance sector to engage very close with the government. There was a creation of the public-private working space with participation of ministries and the insurance regulator and insurance market, and this allow us to work on helping or developing, enhancing the insurance market in the country.
We'll elaborate on the public-private sector. They're working together in a moment. I would like to include Lourdes now, because I mean, we've heard from Gregorio, all the kind of insurance that didn't exist until several years ago, certain schemes that didn't exist, and indeed until 2008, climate risks were not covered by any type of agriculture insurance in Peru, and it was your company that pioneered commercial agricultural insurance in Peru with a product for small-scale farmers. So would you please tell us about the motivation, why you actually did that, and what have you learned doing it over the past years? What were the challenges, and where do you think this is, certainly when it comes to new markets, the microinsurance market, how has all that developed? Lourdes, we'd very much like to hear about that now.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, what happened is that in 2009, the government started this program, a catastrophic insurance program, where La Positiva participated. So it was very important that the government supported this catastrophic insurance program, because this allowed La Positiva to gather information and to get to have knowledge and expertise on crop insurance. Before the catastrophic insurance supported by the government, it was very difficult to get information, and really insurance companies did not have any data to start or to create any product. So I think it's important to say that it was very important that the government took the first step on developing catastrophic insurance in the country. So because we had all this expertise on insurance, crop insurance, we decided to look into small farmers that have access to credit, because catastrophic insurance only insures crops for the very poor, for sustainable farming. So we start looking at small farmers that have access to credit, because in Peru, 82% of all farmers have only 5 hectares or less. So the next step, if we were already insuring the poor, the next step was to look at these small farmers that have access to microcredit. So because these small farmers have their crops affected by climate events, and they lost their production, but not only they lost their production, but they were unable to pay their loans. And because they didn't have the money to pay the loans, so most of these farmers also become not worthy to get loans in the future. And on the other side, we found out that microfinance institutions were the ideal distribution channel for a crop insurance, because it would be, it's almost impossible to get to each one of the farmers directly, offer insurance from La Positiva directly to the farmers. So we needed to find a distribution channel that really had a great approach and were close to the farmers, small farmers. So, and also we realized that MFIs were giving really small amounts of loans, and they were really reaching very few farmers to give out credits for planting crops, because they have realized that agriculture is a very high-risk activity. So I would like to give a short example of how weather events affects not only small farmers, but also MFIs. Professor Jerry Skis many years ago came to Peru and did an analysis on the impact of El Nino on the MFIs. And he mentions in his study the Nino in 1997, 1998, where most farmers or did not plant their crops or they lost all their production. And on the side of the MFIs, what happened is that the default rate went up from 8% to 18% because of El Nino in 1997 and 1998. So once the loans fall into default, this category means that the probability of collection is nearly zero. So what happened is that deposits and savings, and that are the major sources of the capital of MFIs, decline, and people withdrew funds to cope with the problems created by the event. So it took MFIs, according to Professor Jerry Skis, at least 3 years to recover from the compounded problems of loan defaults, loan restructuring, and saving and member deposit withdrawal. So La Positiva said, definitely commercial agricultural insurance is very important, not only for farmers, but also for MFIs. And so and when thinking about MFIs, we are also thinking about farmers, because we believe that in order for farmers to have a higher productivity, they for sure need a microcredit. So this is the motivation and the reasons that we started this commercial insurance. And for sure, there are many challenges and many lessons regarding crop insurance. And I can mention, for example, regarding challenges about yield information. I mean, there's no yield information for each farmer. So we have to work with public information regarding yields, but we also work with credit analysts from the MFIs. And so we all agree on what yield we will be insuring, for example. Another very important challenge is that we find that farmers and also MFIs, farmers are willing to buy insurance when there is a forecast of bad weather. And also MFIs are willing to sell insurance when they know that a bad year is coming. So, and that's really a challenge, because in order to have a sustainable insurance program, we need that insurance should be bought every year. And because weather is really unpredictable, so we cannot rely only on forecasts. And so that's a really big challenge. And also, there is also, I want to mention a challenge on this catastrophic insurance program of the government. There is a high uncertainty of the future of the catastrophic insurance because this program, the premium rates have been going down every year and the coverage has been going up every year. So the premium rate started at 15% in 2009, and to this year, in 2020, the average premium rate is 3.9%, whereas the coverage was 40% of the expected yield in 2009, and currently the coverage is 56% of the expected yields. And the reason why this is happening is because the program works as follows. The ministry calls for a bidding process every year, and the insurance company that offers the lowest premium rate and the highest coverage wins the bidding process. So this kind of procedure has come to this year. Everyone is thinking about how this program should be going on in the future, because it's really something that could, like this year, some reinsurers did not participate. So sustainability
it's not sustainable.
Of this program, yeah.
If I understand you correctly, that government program there is not sustainable. Carlos, Would you like to comment there? I've watched you when listening very closely to what Lourdes had to say about that. I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, Monica. Well, it's important that insurance has the right balance between claims and premiums, and as well to cover the administrative cost and other stuff. The bidding process is as well something that is desirable in terms of having the lowest price in terms of this insurance that is a social insurance and is funded by the government. So that's something that the government has a structure in terms of having a transparent system in terms of how to allocate the coverage. Nonetheless, it's important that the right balances in terms of having the right pricing of the insurance in terms of having enough reserve to pay the bills, and as well it's understandable that insurance something that the reason of the Peru that the market will market during the years, and if they need to adjust something, that's something that should be adjusted, but in a competitive way, and that will force as well the market to be more efficient and introduce new technology to reduce costs. I mean, that's something that will happen gradually in the next years, but I will not say that the program is not good. I mean, it's something that is working, is giving return to the agricultors, and as well it's funded by the government, and needs to be distributed and commerce in an efficient and transparent way. But as well, building on this private and public dialogue that is running probably 3 or 4 years, probably more 6 years. These are that are as well on the table to discuss and see how things can be adjusted in the future in terms of having the most for the people. And it's a working, I mean, all the things that I have been mentioned in the presentation and this in the Q&A role, all of these are work in process. We are not going to having a perfect system, never. We always have something to correct, something to adjust, and probably that's the attitude that we need to have in terms of doing the best for the people.
Well, thank you so much, Carlos. And work in progress is great. It's also very interesting to actually being able to participate and listen to this work in progress, how it's going on, where there is room for improvement, and where one has already achieved a certain level one can live with very well. I have noticed that the chat room, just want to mention that, is terribly quiet. Now, there could be 2 reasons for it. It could either be that everybody is glued to the screen and the speakers and basically just listening to what you have to say, to your contributions. And as this is a very interesting discussion, that is a very feasible possibility. The other possibility is that people are maybe tired. We remember earlier that the majority of the people joining us from Europe, so it's now approaching the evening here, and so maybe they just don't feel up to it anymore, which is why, and I'm not forgetting, because there's a question for Juan and for Renato that I definitely want to fit in, and I also would like to encourage everybody else that when you would like to participate yourself, I'm talking about you, the speakers now, you can always do this, raise your hand, because I can see you. That is very quick, and I can react to that very quickly and bring you in. But in order to in the worst case scenario, wake up all the participants who have not yet used the chat room to send us questions, let's give them some more polling to do, because we have some interesting questions. And certainly for all of you who know Peru very well, it would be interesting to know, find out what the others think they know about it. So here we are. How much of the Peruvian population is particularly vulnerable to heavy rains? You have 3 choices. Make your tick in the box and submit. Other question. What percentage of Peru's glaciers has melted away in the past 35 years? Again, you have three choices, make your tick and submit. How many Peruvians are vulnerable to food insecurity? Again, tough question there, three possible choices. And last but not least, due to climate change in recent years, seasonal water variations have diverged from historic patterns in Peru, resulting in more droughts and floods, more droughts. So please go through those 4 questions, decide which answer you think is right, tick the box and submit. It will be interesting to know where our participants stand there. And you still have a few seconds to go. And let's see how many of you. And time is up. And usually, again, a few seconds it takes. And here we are. Okay, so we have, for the first question, how much of the Peruvian population is particularly vulnerable to heavy rains? The right answer is 5.5 million, and that's what the majority also selected. How many Peruvians, or the percentage of Peru's glacier? There again, I unfortunately have a different question in my papers. I'm sure that the back office will inform me very quickly, or Carlos or Claudia, what is the right answer? Do you want to share that with us? Okay, so you're waiting for that too. Okay, I will enlighten you in a second. I will enlighten you in a second as soon as the back office tells me. I think it was 22%. I read it somewhere, but I might completely be wrong. Then, of course, how many Peruvians are vulnerable to food insecurity? There I do know the answer. It's 14 million. So 5 participants went for that. And then we have due to climate change, what do we have more? More droughts and floods, more droughts. Again, I have the right question here, and it is indeed more droughts and floods. So dear back office, could you enlighten us and give us the right answer to the glacier question, or prompt me so I can tell everybody else? I think it was 22%. I feel very silly not knowing it.
We will put it in the chat. Hi, this is from the back office.
It's 22%.
So
it is 22%. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we know. Okay, and we also know that some participants are still with us, which is good news. And perhaps they even have a question for you. We're certainly ready to pass it on to you. So until they've typed questions in, I would like to have one follow-up for one, because we heard Lord going on or telling us about certainly the initiative that her company came up with in order to have agriculture insurance for small-scale farmers there. It would be interesting to hear how the IADB supports the development of local insurance markets. What are you doing there, and what works there, what doesn't? Would you share that with us, Juan?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I think segment, right? Because there are so many challenges.
Okay, do you want to try and speak without the video? For some reason, it keeps breaking up. Maybe it's better without the video.
Okay, hello. I will try it again, okay?
Okay, we can hear you now. That's good. Keep going.
I was trying to say that this is crop insurance, agriculture insurance is a very challenging segment. Creating the necessary conditions to promote this, local insurance market for this type of product is key. I think the participation of the public and private sectors in creating the incentives to develop these markets are very important. In the case of Peru, as we can see in the participant in this panel, both sectors are represented and are part of that effort with the country. Still, the penetration is low. We are talking here about commercial insurance. Okay, well, I am not talking about the catastrophic program. One of the way that the options that we are helping the country to move forward, and try to improve the penetration is through financial institutions. Agrobanco is a public bank, is one of the main channels of credit to the small farmers. They have a program, and I think La Positiva Lourdes is for many years trying to push, the insurance program that Agrobanco is, supporting with credit to these small producers. I think the key here is to make sure, that the coverage are the right one for the producers, that the risk analysis is well done, data is available. So there are, many considerations. Also, I think Carlos mentioned about the pricing, the right calculation of the premium is also very important because, for instance, if we are, in the population, we are charging a low premium, we may have problems where we have extreme events that may affect the insurer, or due to the uncertainty in the calculation because of the lack of data, we are charging high premiums to the producer. So there's many issues that are very important to promote and to try to strengthen. But at the end, I think both public and private sector participation is very relevant. In the case of Peru, for instance, combination of credit and insurance is a good way to go, due to this low penetration that I was referring, because also as a public policy you can promote through the Ministry of Agriculture more resilience in the production practices, to reduce the exposure to different risks. So that you can do a combination of public policy interventions through credit and insurance, and also increasing the productivity of the small producers. So I think this is very important. And also in the medium term, other participants in the market will be willing to be part of it. As of today, the commercial insurance for these small producers is very, very concentrated. There are only few insurers that are willing to take the risk because all of these challenges that we mentioned. Data is really scarce, so it's not really available, and because of that, many participants, market participants, they don't want to take the risk and offer insurance products. But I think we are going in the right direction. There is a lot of to be done. I think Renato, through the association, is supporting that, also promoting this collaboration between the public and private sector.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to actually, I wanted to hear you out, but this was exactly where I was headed to next, to Renato, because you mentioned something, the risk taking, how many insurers are willing to do it, how many insurers can afford it. And Renato there, speaking there for the Association of Peruvian Insurance Companies, how risk willing are you? How can you be actually, especially, and that brings us back to what you talked on earlier, the public and private sector, they're working together in particularly to address the challenge of making your product affordable to those who need it most, because very often they are not the rich and wealthy who need it most. They can afford it, but it's exactly those, the small income earners, the farmers, the people who basically find it hard to afford it. So what kind of tools, what kind of products do you have there, and how much risk is there involved? Renato, over to you.
Thank you, Monica. Well, to answer the question, I would have to refer back to this unique working environment that was created in Peru about 5 years ago, which is called the Public-Private Dialogue for the Development of Agricultural Insurance. This is roundtable periodic meetings where the participants are the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Agriculture, the insurance regulator, and also the insurance companies. And in these roundtables, it gives us the opportunity to discuss in different topics. It could be about new regulations, it could be about product development, enhancement, and some other issues. For example, an issue that happened at the beginning of this pandemic situation was the country lockdown. That when some areas in the country were affected by climate events, because of the lockdown, there were some difficulties for insurance companies to go and do inspections areas that were affected. Some other areas in the country, the community itself did not want to allow people from outside the community to get inside the community to do the inspections. So this is, for example, a type of issue that is discussed at this round of tables, and also the one that Lourdes mentioned regarding the sustainability of the catastrophic insurance product. And I said that this is a unique because it's the only line of business where this works. And it's a space that it has allowed this product or this line of business to grow efficiently. From one side, we have the catastrophic insurance that about 4 years ago, it covered only 230,000 producers, and nowadays it has a national reach. We cover the entire country. Before it was only 8 regions, and now about 1 million of producers are covered in this program. Also, during this round of tables, these sessions that we hold periodically, we were able to discuss with the government the implementation of new subsidies to the commercial insurance product. In that way, with the subsidy, the products could be more affordable for local commercial producers. And in this way, this has been working very good to help to tackle the challenge of affordability in some insurance products.
Well, thank you, Renato. So those round tables seem to work, and obviously it's always good to exchange and to talk to each other in order to come up with solutions that work for all. I've come up with a question now. Actually, I haven't, but obviously the last polling has done the bit. So we do have from the floor a question, and referring to Gregorio and him earlier on, raising the point of how insurance is treated in public financial management. And this participant thinks that this is a point worth expanding, certainly in terms of implications on the budgeting process. So, Gregorio, if you wouldn't mind to explore this issue for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. There are in public finances management. There are different issues. The main one has to do with budgeting. As insurance expenses is considered as current expenses in many countries. It's not only in Peru. I have noticed that when working with other countries, with World Bank and ADB. The problem is it's often raised as that you have within the fiscal rule per country, you have rules which have to do with, for example, with levels of public debt compared to GDP. rules concerning big deficit. But one of the most usual rules is the pace of the increase of current expenses. Current expenses including also all the operating expenses of the state. And sometimes it acts, plays a role of limits the scope for improving the insurance for public assets. Because for different political reasons, the current expenses tend to increase very close to the limit that the government has for itself as part of its fiscal rules. Well, maybe sometimes it's a rule which came from following an IMF audit, for example. But sometimes, like in Peru, there are rules that the countries this rule themselves in order to have a good control of the increase in public expenditure. So, unfortunately, different kinds of public expenditure increase unexpectedly, and this leaves less room for increasing rapidly the insurance of public assets. And then there is the second part, which gives rise to two challenges. It's the procurement side. Let's aside the issue of proper mainstreaming of insurance, I would say, into the work of public procurement agency. There is a trend in public finances in most countries to prefer the lowest cost, everything. For insurance, that's a problem, because when the public institution looks for the lowest cost, according to some rules coming from procurement processes, procurement rules, will end up with insurance which is, well, the price looks good, but it comes at a cost, because this means that you will have exclusions. So the quality of the insurance taken will not very good. It will be insufficient to cover adequately public investment. And this is a challenge that we found. I think we had this kind of discussion with Eduardo Moron and with APESEC. No, sometimes we had this, and with Renato, we had this challenge. You had not many insurers were keen on working with the government, so de facto we ended up with a kind of oligopoly. So sometimes the premium will be much higher than expected. At the same time, as what was expected from the procurement rules was to have the lowest possible premium, you would end up with insurance with too many exclusions, and then having and that's why the price was relatively low. Personally, I've never been in favor of I would say of insurance being at a much lower price, if I see it from a fiscal management perspective. Why? Because when you have insurance which doesn't cover sufficiently your public assets, you end up having a lower coverage in practice. So this means that in case of disasters, the government will spend more for the recovery, the reconstruction, because for some reasons, well, the insurance, the coverage will be not be there. And this happens not only for public investment, but for public assets. I noticed that problem in the, in the public investment, which is done through public-private partnerships, concessions mainly. Very often you could have I had the opportunity to, with the help of World Bank, to make an audit of those contracts. And what we found is that there were very often the insurance was very cheap, expectedly cheap. They say, well, how come? Including for these projects, how can this insurance be so cheap for these kind of projects? And then, when looking into the details of the contract, we found out that very often there were lots of exclusions, and that's why it was cheap. So it's a difficult balancing act. It's the government is obliged to be careful with its current expenses, but at the same time, having insurance premium which are too cheap is dangerous for the government itself, because in case of disaster, you will always have some clause that will make the insurance contract will not work. So it ends up the risk being taken by the government.
Right. Right, Gregorio, I think you've painted a very clear picture of an extremely complex system. Cheap is cheap, expensive isn't expensive, and the tailor-made product for certain groups, it's all not as easy as it sounds. And then there's the small print, as you mentioned. Carlos, listening to Gregorio there, expanding the way that public finance management in terms of budgeting process, and with obviously with regards to insurance, where does this leave Peru? Where are we right now? I mean, we've been talking now for an hour, and we heard some very great examples of schemes, of projects that are underway, projects that already work well, others that are still work in progress. But where are we right now? Could you pinpoint us in that direction?
That's a challenging question. I would love to have all the answers and already running and in place. But that's something that we would need to work in the next years, and that's something that is very glad, because we are going to be very busy. We as a country, I mean, the government, the private sector, the supervisor. A few things that are related to the procurement process. I think that part of the government, this new unit that is involved in analyzing each insurance risk and is trying to give standards in the hiring process, in the procurement process, it's something that could work in the following years in terms of trying to having a special unit that standardize what the government requires in terms of coverage. So that will reduce what Gregorio was mentioning about the lack of coverage or too much exclusions, whatever it means in the right balance. I think that will help and in terms of having a standard. And as well, a big part of this process is something that we have not mentioned yet, but it's related to education, to insurance education and training, to not only we need to train agricultural farmers, but we need to train as well people that hire insurance in the government. It's not an easy task. I mean, it's not like understanding how a banking account works. Insurance, it's complicated. Coverage needs to be understood, exclusions needs to be understood, and the cycle in the insurance is in the other side as a financial system. In the financial system, you knock the door for a credit, and then you need to return every month to pay. In insurance is the other side. I mean, you need to pay before you receive the service. So you need to give that idea to many people. It seems very easy and clear, but it's quite difficult to understand. And that's something related to training, and that's something that we are working on as well. We have a very interesting project, not project, I mean, we are running a very deep educational and training in trying to include more people into this understanding of the insurance. But it's something that needs to be worked very hard and very in depth, trying to more people understand how this works. In terms of if the government understands the risk, I think that these documents that I showed you, and that includes in all of those documents and strategies, the insurance as a mitigator, it's an important point because all the initiatives that are going to be working on in the following years, it will take into account the insurance as a financial mitigator. But there are many ways and routes that need to be followed after those initiatives. In terms of the supervisor, I believe that, I'm very sure that we are going to continue working on systems like I mentioned for earthquake and tsunamis. It's a big challenge for us. In tsunami and risk modeling, we need to work very close with engineers that are the experts and they have laboratories to model and the risk and the capacity of constructions. But we need to do something similar for all our risks. And that's not something that we can do in a couple of years. It's a long-term project, but we have the commitment to continue in that path. The insurance sector as well have a lot of challenge. Penetration in Peru is very low. It's around 2% of GDP. So what we are talking about risk in the insurance sector is very, very low. It's increasing in the last years very fast. Yes, that's right. But it's a lot of gap to cover, and that means that insurance industry needs to develop new strategies trying to cover additional people more than what they was just to cover. I mean, that's a commercial issue, but not only that. I mean, to discover new markets means to invest as well in discover new potential clients, and the efficiency of the Peruvian insurance industry, if you compare those numbers with other countries, it's a lot of room to be more efficient. I mean, using technologies, I believe that's something that can help. But as well, gaining more market, which means more people cover, will allow that index to be better in comparative way. So that's something that as well insurance company needs to be done.
I just have one suggestion, and Carlos, you can answer, but maybe also Claudia or Lourdes would like to take this up briefly, because I keep an eye on the clock there. But there is a suggestion from one of the participants, perhaps international climate finance providers like the Green Climate Fund could play a role there in addressing market failures or other difficulties around climate risk insurance. What are your thoughts on that? The Green Climate Fund or other international climate finance providers? Could that be a solution? Certainly, while in this case, Peru's insurance and disaster risk response is work in progress. Claudia or Lourdes, do you have thoughts on that? Can't see Juan or Renato, but Claudia, I haven't heard from you in a while.
Yes, I'd be happy to comment on that. And I will say that before addressing that specific question, I am optimistic about the position that Peru is taking on the use of insurance as such an important tool. Because the project that we are doing, as an example, for the government to decide that they want to look at insuring public schools and increase the continuity or improve the continuity of education is actually quite a significant step. If you think about it, the country has more than 50,000 public schools, and with all the issues that we have mentioned, and Carlos mentioned the challenge of data and risk models and so on. And I do think that as an industry, of course, we have to play our part. I mean, I'm representing here today the Insurance Development Forum, which really sets key goals, as well as the InsuResilience Solutions Fund, which co-funds our projects, to deliver capacity building, something that Carlos mentioned, right? To ensure that the government actually not only owns but understands its risks and understands the price of those risks. So our projects make capacity development very much part of what we deliver, but also in terms of owning and understanding risk, the risk models that we will develop, they will be made available to the government on an open source basis, which means that they can work with them, they can add data on them later on. We're addressing the risk of flood and earthquake. So I think that the willingness of the government of Peru to actually enter into this process of working together with them to develop this project is actually a very good sign, and everything that Carlos has been telling us about the projects they are working on as well with IDB, I think it's something that should make us optimistic. And also the understanding of, when we talk about the role of insurance and how it plays on a national budget, the point that you were discussing earlier, the fact that, well, yes, even if by law it is considered an expense, premium is considered an expense, but the fact that when the payout is actually made, when an event happens, the fact that it's money in your hand, it's funds that you can use, and it doesn't create additional debt, and it has a totally different effect on the country's credit rating, which is so critical. Recently, we were talking with someone in the government saying to us, Peru has moved from poverty to middle class as a country, and it can slowly afford to do certain things. It can afford to invest in this type of vehicles. That development needs to be protected. Right? We know that insurance, among other vehicles, needs to play a role in that. So I would say that I am optimistic about where Peru stands. I think that the public-private dialogues that Carlos and Renato are part of are an extremely good sign. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that I think there is good work going on.
Okay, Gregorio, if you could keep it very short, because I'm starting with a very last round now, but obviously you have the floor.
Very shortly, this I really agree with Claudia, because for a long time, the problem in Peru was this kind of awareness of the importance of insurance. And what Claudia is saying is exactly the same thing that I was trying to use as an argument. I said, but in the end, if you don't have proper insurance, it will cost more to the government. This is what will happen all the time. So you need to have, and they always use this expression, which means the worst insurance is the one that you don't have. This is a really an important issue. When there is increased awareness, and apparently now in the education ministry, there is even an enhanced awareness about that. That's even better, because you end up with additional expenditure, an expected expenditure, and an additional debt if you then didn't insure correctly your asset. It's the same thing for development of private sector. The more you have insurance in the private sector, the lower the pressures on the government bring assistance at the same time, because the people were insured at the same time. And it's also in the end, it's a moral issue. That's why I just leave the question there. Maybe one of the, after education, maybe one of the fields where we could have more developments to be explored, maybe with the resilience, InsuResilience partnership, is things that have to do with adaptive social protection, trying to bring in insurance products into development at adaptive social protection to shocks. It's I just leave that question there. But it's part of the work that is being done, for example, in Africa against drought risk.
All right. Well, Gregorio, thank you so much. I just see, and you probably noticed as well, the chat has woken up. Sadly, a bit late for this session, which is rapidly coming to a close. But I can tell all the participants who are now really sort of lively and active, all the questions and all the inputs that you are currently sharing there in the chat, they will not be lost. You can send, first of all, you can send an email to the InsuResilience Secretariat, and they will then make sure that you will get an answer or a reply to the comment and the question. And the email address will be shown right after this. And of course, after this, there is still the Risk Talk platform. You can also still engage. So I just needed to get this in. And now with the last 5 minutes, I hope, Carlos and Gregorio, you will not be angry with me if I only ask Lourdes, Juan and Renato, and perhaps Claudia, if it's very, very short. There was an awful lot of input. Please be kind to the participant and try to say one key takeaway of this discussion that we just had. Just one key takeaway, ideally 1 sentence, maximum 2. And I would like to start with Juan, if he's still there.
Sure. What I can say very quick, one sentence is that Peru is really moving forward. The conditions, I mean, are being developed to promote the insurance. I think in both the public sector, the insurance regulator, Ministry of Finance, they are very committed, and also from the private sector, there are companies that are willing to participate and promote insurance market development in Peru. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Renato, your key takeaway, please.
Very short. I would say to bring into the markets where you are coming from, innovative solutions into place. Peru was a clear example on how money was not the issue for government in order to reconstruct public assets. So bringing a solution that innovative solution that involves an insurance program, it could definitely provide the government with a different perspective on how they see insurance, and in that way solving a problem for the government, solving a risk problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Renato. Lourdes, I'd like to hear your key takeaway from this session, please.
Yes, I think a main idea is that public-private partnership is required to move forward on ensuring not only crops, but also public assets.
Fantastic. That leaves room for Claudia, if she's got a key takeaway for us.
I have one. Ownership and understanding of risk and risk models in governments is key, particularly in the public infrastructure area. But I will also call on Juan Jose and the Inter-American Development Bank, because I think all these lessons that we have heard here today, it is so important to also share them across the region. I think that needs to happen more, and a collaboration would be wonderful to actually enable that.
Brilliant, thank you. And
Thanks,
I'm
Monica.
extremely daring now. Gregorio, a very, very short key takeaway. Are you still with us, Gregorio?
My sound. Okay, I am on again. Okay, so even shorter then. So the key takeaways, I would say that public-private partnerships are key, absolutely indispensable to develop the insurance of both public assets and expanding the insurance among the private and the household, private sector and households. It's really both a country risk issue. It contributes to have a better management of the country risk and to the sovereign risk at the same time. And it's at the same time a social and moral issue. Because the more you have people which are insured, the better it is for society.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Gregorio. Carlos, your key takeaway in 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. 4 years. Long-term projects, good planning, look for technical assistance when it's needed, and build on institutions. Thank you so much.
I thank you. I thank you all. And I thought this was a very, very rich round of the panel here with lots of information, lots of contribution, lots of food for thought. And it's going to be very interesting. Hopefully you have the time to also keep an eye on the chat or maybe get in touch with the InsuResilience Secretariat to follow up some of those questions that have still reached us now right at the end of this panel discussion. The email address to the Secretariat you can find in the chat the same. You find the link there. Also for the risk talk, because this is something that is possible for you now after this session. But first of all, let me tell you that this was the third regional session, but it wasn't the last regional session of the day. We have one more for you, and that focuses on the Pacific region, a case study on Fiji. And of course, we have a big day tomorrow, the fourth day, the final day of the fourth InsuResilience Global Partnership Forum, looking at impacting lives, and the big closing session, of course, presenting evidence of how CDRFI impacts lives, plus the side event that we will also have tomorrow. And as I mentioned, if you still feel full of energy, and some participants in the chat certainly have lots of energy all of a sudden, then we can invite them now to join the Risk Talk platform, where they can elaborate on all the issues that were discussed just now, and maybe also get one or two answers to the questions they still raised. So thank you very much again to all our speakers. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best for your work. And of course, stay healthy. This is something one can't reiterate often enough these days. Stay healthy, stay safe. And if you are somewhere where it's the evening, good night. For everybody else, have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, Monica.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.